My name is Lucia Macchia, and I will talk about physical pain, job loss, or unemployment and job control. So I'll talk about the existing work, so a little bit of literature review and what type of literature this paper informs. I'll talk about the present study, the findings, the practical implications, and by the end, what can we do moving forward with this study. Before we talk about the paper, I want to give you a definition of physical pain, which will be helpful with something that I will mention at the end of the talk. So physical pain is an uncomfortable sensation that we feel in the body that can be associated with physical or emotional circumstances. It can have physical or emotional roots. So the literature on the association between physical pain and unemployment is surprisingly quite small. There are some cross-sectional studies that basically show that people who do not work report greater pain than those who work, or that people who report greater physical pain are more likely to be unemployed than those who do not report pain or report lower levels of pain. And there are only 3 longitudinal studies that try to uncover the effect or the potential negative effect of pain on unemployment. One uses the National Child Development Study, the NCDS, which is one of the British cohorts, and the authors found that experiencing pain at age 44 was linked with unemployment at age 55. The second one is from Alan Pipers, who's here, using the German socioeconomic panel, and the authors found that people who experience greater pain are more likely to be unemployed years later. And the last one is uses the Norwegian hand study, and the authors look specifically at musculoskeletal pain, and they found that people who experience greater musculoskeletal pain are more likely to be unemployed than those who report lower musculoskeletal pain. So what's the issue with these studies? Not the issues, the gap that these studies present is that so they don't fully uncover the magnitude of the effect. And that's covered in the first study of this paper, which you can find briefly in the abstract in the program. But I will focus on the second study, which also fills a gap in this literature because we look at the factor that might be explaining or at least mitigating the potential negative effect of pain on unemployment. And the issue here is that, so with my co-authors, we thought that maybe there's not much on this because it's easy and reasonable to assume that people who are in pain are more likely to be unemployed because they have mainly and only physical problems. But there are other issues that might be playing a role in the link between pain and unemployment. And this is what we are looking at today. So we had mainly 2 research questions. The first one is whether pain is associated with unemployment over time and the transition from employment to unemployment and from unemployment to employment. And the second one is whether job control, represented by decision autonomy and skill discretion, can moderate the link between physical pain and unemployment. We used HILDA, the Australian panel. We had around 25,000 people, which follow over time, made to 200,000 observations from 2002 to 2022, around 20 waves of data. We use individual fixed effects regressions to account for the panel structure of the data and to account for the unobserved factors that might be playing a role in our relationship of interest. We also had the usual demographic factors like age, gender, marital status, education, and so on, a state, occupation, and wave fixed effects. And we had 3 health controls. One was whether people had long-term health conditions. It was a binary measure. And we thought that it is the most objective measure of physical health that we can have, self-reported, right? And then we conducted robustness checks with general physical health and mental health as covariates. And mainly we also use a lagged measure of physical pain. So in this case, physical pain is our independent variable and unemployment or job loss is the dependent variable. And we use lagged physical pain to reduce the possibility of reverse causality. We have T-1, -2, and -3. Everything holds. I will show you only one wave lagged for the sake of time. So our pain measure, it's how much bodily pain have you had in the last 4 weeks, from 1 to 6, no pain at all to very severe pain. And our dependent variable was job loss, which represented people who were unemployed or out of the labor force with 1, and people who were employed with 0. Our moderator job control was created with 2 big items, decision autonomy and skill discretion. The measure was 1 to 7. 1, I completely disagree with these items. 7, I completely agree with these 5 items. And in decision autonomy, people were asked how they do the work, what they do, and when they do it. And in skill discretion, people were asked whether they had the chance to learn new skills at work and whether they had the chance to use those skills at work. We combined these 5 items in our measure of job control, 1 to 7, and that was our key moderator. Into the findings, so here we have an unadjusted, and this is important, unadjusted relationship between physical pain in a given year and job loss the year after. And we see that there's a positive relationship. This means that people who experience greater pain in a given year might be more likely to lose their job the year later, 1 year later. Here we will see in a minute the coefficients from the regression equations using job loss at time t as the dependent variable and physical pain at t-1 as the independent variable. And we have all the controls. And we have 7 columns because I want to show you how the effect changes when we include all the covariates. So we jump from the 0.0, almost 3, which was the unadjusted graph that I just showed you, to the 0.004 with all the controls. We believe that we are kind of over-controlling because we have like massive range of controls, but it still shows that even accounting for all those things, the relationship is still positive and highly significant. We also tested whether pain plays a role in the transition from employment to unemployment and from unemployment to employment from 1 year to another in addition. So the previous regressions were over time, all the waves together and with individual fixed effects. And here we have the likelihood of having high levels of pain in a year and whether that increases my probability of changing or switching or transitioning from employment to unemployment. And we see that there's a positive link between pain in a given year and transitioning from employment to unemployment, and a negative link from transitioning from unemployment or job loss to employment. This means that pain plays a role in being in and out of the labor force, not only being out of the labor force. So it also conditions people's probability of going back to work. Our moderator, job control, created with decision autonomy and skill discretion. And here we find that, so the blue line represents people with low control and the green line represents people with low job control, high job control. And here we find that if we consider, for example, people with very severe pain, we see that people with very severe pain and low job control are more likely to lose their job a year after than those who have high job control. Potential explanations. One is the negative emotions that might be created from having low job control might increase the pain and lead to job loss. And this comes from the experimental literature that shows that negative emotions or experimentally induced negative emotions can increase pain or create new pain. And the second one, potential explanation, could be more, bless you, could be more, let's say, rational, if we want to put it like that, and it's connected to the benefits of decision autonomy. So people who have decision autonomy at work might be able to work around their pain to work more when they have less pain and to work less when they have more pain, and then still keep their job. Implications, of course, public health, everything that helps to reduce people's pain is important for public health policy and also workplace policies, because employers can incorporate these findings and promote decision autonomy so that their employees can stay longer at work. And this is my last word today. Most of you might have seen this recently, and this is to show you what type of literature and argument this paper is informing. So the idea is to use physical pain as a measure of negative affect and to include physical pain as a component of negative affect in the hedonic dimension of subjective well-being. And this idea, excuse me. And this idea comes from the literature that suggests that physical pain can be a metric of mental ill-being in addition to a physical health problem. So we hope that this study and other studies that have been recently conducted on the psychosocial, socioeconomic, and behavioral aspects of pain motivate future work on pain from this perspective and considering it as a negative affect item in the conceptualization of subjective well-being. Thank you very much.
Hi, Lucia. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I had just two small points, if you like to answer. The first one is about the economic significance of the coefficient that you're showing us, because a 0.4% increase or percentage point increase, because I'm not sure about the scale you're using, doesn't seem very large. So if you can say something about that. And the second thing is whether or not you tried looking at non-linearities in the effect of physical pain on unemployment. So, for instance, moving from no pain to some pain is not the same as moving from moderate pain to very high level of pain. So is there something you can tell us about that?
Yeah, thank you, Georgia. Yeah, on the effect, so the effect is small after controlling for everything. That's why I wanted to show you all the steps. And that 0.04 could be, we might be over controlling for all those things. And this question is important for the first study of the paper, which is described in the abstract, because the issue that this study has, which is the limitation, is the short pain scale, is 1 to 6. And study 1 uses an 11-point scale measure in which we found that the effect is after controlling for everything. It's not just 4%, it's 17% after controlling for everything, and even larger, almost 30% with an adjusted relationship. And remind me the second question? Non-linearity, yes, great. So we use the pain measure as categorical because it's 1 to 6, and we found the same. Of course, the effect is stronger in greater pain level categories, but the negative effect is even mild pain affects or is associated with unemployment. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lucia, for a very great presentation. On Sunday, we have elections in Belgium, and this is what many discussions are about, but then well informed. So thanks for that. So what I wanted to ask is a very simple clarifying question. So you're looking at the percentage of job loss. Is that people who are unemployed, or is that also people who move to disability?
That's a great point.
Because of course, if it means moving to disability, then of course it is almost trivial that pain comes in the first step. So would it be possible to disentangle the effect for the two groups?
Yeah, that's a great question, because our measure of job loss was created with the employment status measure. So we don't know whether people who are out of the labor force, if that's the reason, but the one in that job loss measure includes people who are out of the labor force, potentially due to this or not, and those who were unemployed. So I think we will have to use another measure of what's the reason of unemployment or the reason of being out of the labor force. But that's something we can do. Yeah.
Hey, so again, thanks for your presentation. Very shortly, do you think that one of the channels could be through productivity change? I mean, so that is an issue that if you have an increase in pain, there is a reduction in productivity, and this explains why you are higher probability of being unemployed. So you can try to control for that. That is not exactly monitoring or control of job, no?
Yeah, no, it can happen.
About, I mean, your productivity indeed.
Yeah, so we control for pain interference. Of course, pain level and pain interference are highly correlated, so that's not the best test, but that can speak to your question in the sense that when we control for pain interference, the effect or the relationship between pain and unemployment becomes insignificant. So that means that there's something happening in the human body so that the pain leads to unemployment. Whether it's productivity or not, we don't know specifically, but it can happen. So it's not just a mental thing. So it can happen that it's physical and then loss productivity. Yeah.
Very brief one, more like a comment. Following up on a previous comment by Cohen, I think it may be interesting extension to look into pathways out of, because people may be fired or their contracts may finish and then they're just not able to find another job, or they may need to, move to disability. So that could add you somehow more fine grain to understanding what's really happening.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we are working on that in a different paper. And there are two pathways that I can briefly tell you now. One is psychological distress, and the other one is physiological dysregulation, like cortisol levels, even cholesterol. So those are things that might be a pathway between pain and unemployment, or even life satisfaction pain and things like that. Yeah, thank you.